Hey gang, what's going on everybody? Happy holidays to you all. Thank you for coming in and sitting in on the live stream, the last live stream of the year. Before Christmas, I don't think there'll be one between Christmas and New Year's. So this is our last live stream of the year. Let me know if you can hear okay, if the audio's good, video's good, and all that stuff. And we'll hang out for a bit, tell you about some things that are coming up, and just get a chance to hang out with the group right before the holiday. So I hope you're all doing well. Let's see who is floating through the comments here. We have John Doe's here. Hey, John Doe, what's going on? Merry Christmas to you as well. And Harley Bob, how are you? Sinfanny TV's here. Good to have you here. Thank you for joining. Braxel is here. He's taking off soon. Have a fun time at your party, Braxel. That's really cool. But thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Who else is here? Higher Grounds is here as well. Really cool. Good evening, I Mixed Up. Great to see you again. Looks and sounds great. Awesome. Everything looks good. That's awesome. Tracy's here as well. Hey, Tracy, how are you? Happy holidays. Good to have everybody here once again for another live stream hangout. It's been a few weeks. I think the last one was a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, with David S.J. He was up from New York. And he was hanging out with us. He'll be back here, I think, next weekend. Yeah, today's Saturday, right? Yeah, after Christmas, next weekend, to do some stuff with me on the console. So he'll be back up. Maybe we'll do a live stream. I don't know. Depends how that day goes. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been a bit. You got the Braxel's got the West Audio Pandora. Oh, that's the new multi-band compressor thing, right? It's good on a mix bus and vocals. Yeah, you were saying last time it takes up 3 of the 500 slots. I only thought it took 2, but that's interesting. I haven't tried that yet. That sounds really cool, man. Hey, Jason, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming. Audio and video are good. That's awesome. Nice cold night out to sit out and sit in front of some nice warm outboard gear. Yeah, this gear's been on all day. I've been mixing a record here today, and so we're finishing up. I still got to do the finishing touches on it, but it's almost done. So it's nice and warm in here today, nice and toasty. That's for sure. Oh, sounds good on the drum bus. Good. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get that piece in here unless they send it to me for review. Possibly. I really don't need that piece. Hey, Zona, what's going on? Have Merry Christmas to you as well and to your family. And to everybody's family out there. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I hope you're getting ready for a great 2025, right? We're winding down this year. We're getting close, and then we start this stuff all over again next year, which should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of new cool stuff coming up here. We're broadcasting night on both YouTube channels, both Mixing Music Analog and Home Recording Made Easy, because why not? Because the stuff that I talk about really kind of crosses over with both channels. Especially stuff that's coming up in the beginning of 2025. A lot of Home Recording Made Easy news, which we'll talk about soon. Hey, Malcolm. I did not order it. I was actually, I actually had a Zoom call with Chris from Audioscape, Chris Yetter, and we talked about the fair comp. That is, I am getting their fair comp. I am. I'm buying it, but I'm getting it. And he's assured me that I'm going to get one of the first ones off the line. So we talked on Tuesday or Wednesday. We spoke for about an hour. He's got a lot of new cool stuff coming out too next year. I can't talk about most of it, but he's got a lot of cool stuff coming. Not stuff that I necessarily need, but I'm going to do a bunch of, demos for him anyway, just if he doesn't even if I don't need the gear. Just for him to send it to me, and I'll do some videos for him and send it back to him if I don't need it, because I love Chris at Audioscape and all the people down at Audioscape. So, yes, the fair comp, we will be getting that for sure. Probably not going to happen until the end of January, beginning of February, if I understood the timetable correctly from Chris. They'll be announcing some more information around that at NAMM. So that's what, mid-January? So that means we probably won't see one till February give or take. That's my guess. That's my guess. But yeah, we got some really cool stuff going to happen with Audioscape with it. Yeah, Chris is the best. I love Chris over there. Like I said, we chat quite frequently. And I chat with a few of the other folks down there at Audioscape, and they're a big supporter of me here, and I'm a big supporter of them. And I'm really excited to be working with them and doing stuff with them in the future. So we had a really great conversation on Tuesday when we spoke. One of the things that I'm going to do as a YouTube series of videos where we're going to break down a mix, actually mix it live, and mix it with only Audioscape gear. And actually going to use all the Audioscape gear in the particular mix and show where I use the particular pieces and experiment on different elements and those kinds of things. So we're working out the details on that, but we're going to do that in the first half of the year next year. So there'll be a handful of videos around that, so people can see the Audioscape gear in action and just the Audioscape gear minus the console, obviously. So that'll be fun. And then we got other stuff we're going to do, other things we're going to do together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with Audioscape. I am. A CL1B. They have a lot of new stuff that are in the works. Some will be released next year, some maybe the following year. He's got a lot of cool things coming out. I just can't really mention what it's going to be. But if you send them emails on things that you guys would like to see them create, they use that list as certainly part of maybe some of the decision-making process of what gets released when and development and all that stuff. So who knows? Maybe we will see a CL1B one day soon. Hey, Bobby, how you doing? Good to see you. I'd like to see Audioscape do a distressor. I let them know that the other day. Just because, why not, right? Why not? You've done everything else. Why not do a distressor too? So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Audioscape's really cool. Love Audioscape. Love Audioscape. So what are you guys all up to in your studio? I got a lot of stuff that I can share with you. First and foremost, today started our Christmas sale at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. So 50% off all the courses. There's a coupon code that you can use. It's right on the homepage there. If you're on the email list, you've probably gotten the first email today. And we'll be running a 50% off sale right through Christmas. So jump on in to the 50% off sale at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And that includes all the premium courses, the mixing masterclass, the mixing hybrid courses, all three of them, and then everything else that's on the website. So everything that's on the website is 50% off. Go jump on it now and get your last minute Christmas shopping in with good old Uncle Dave here at Home Recording Made Easy. If you guys have any questions or anything you guys want to chat about, get them in the chat. I'll tell you about some of the videos that are coming up on both the channels. Things that are already done, recorded, you'll just see them kind of trickle out. And then I'll tell you about some new stuff that's going to be coming up, and then I'll, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So for the Mixing Music Analog channel, we have the RSE Audio VA3A Compressor. That is coming out on, I believe, this next Tuesday, right before Christmas. That one's coming out. Then the next video after that is the Zombie Pro Audio recording, the Mammoth, the low end shaper. That's coming out after that. I think the first week of January is when that one's done. I already got it in the rack and I've been using it on the last mix right there. That thing's killer, by the way. Wait until you hear that thing. You're going to have a serious case of gas when you hear that thing, trust me. So that's coming up. We have another video coming up on the GainLab Audio Governor, which you saw the video last week. If you didn't watch it, it's on the channel. You can check that out. We have the second video that we're going to do for that one coming too. Then we're also going to do a second video for the RSE Audio VA3A on some single elements, not just full mixes like we did in the first video, but that won't come out till probably the end of January-ish or so. And the same thing with the Mammoth. I'll do another video on that too, on a mix, like kind of live, so you can kind of see that. So that's coming. What else? On the Home Recording Made Easy channel, there are, let's see, there's a couple of more plug-in demo videos from Kive Audio that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. Those have already been done. What else is coming up? There's a couple. Oh, and then the my yearly wrap up where we talk about goals and objectives for all our studio owners out there that are kind of following along for the last, I think, 4 years. Every year we talk about the goals in our studios, you know, and what we're going to accomplish. And then at the end of the year, I come back and talk about whether I accomplished them or not and try to hold some of you guys accountable as well. And oddly enough, it's that video every year seems to do well. And there's quite a few people who watch that video who have their own YouTube channels. And then they've kind of taken the video series as kind of some inspiration, and they're doing the same thing with their audiences. And they send me the links and I go watch their videos. It's really cool. So it's really all about working in your studio, whether you're doing it as a hobby or whether you're doing it full time. It doesn't really matter. If you have projects and goals for your music in your studio, we want to talk about, you know, what are you going to do next year, and talk about the importance of setting goals. And then we all come back at the end of the year and we hold each other accountable. So you'll get a chance to see. I just finished the video the other day, so that'll come out next week, right before the end of the year, where you'll get to see all the goals that we talked about at the beginning of 2024. And then I take you through each one at a time. Did I accomplish it? Did I not accomplish it? And then what are my goals for 2025? So you ought to check that out. And there's, like I said, the last 4 years, we've done it every year. So you can search the archives for that. So that'll be cool. That's a fun video I always like to do. That is coming up. And then in 2025, for Home Recording Made Easy, folks, let's see. So in January will be the re-release or the new release of Mixing Made Easy Volume 1, the 2025 edition. I think I might have told you guys maybe last live stream or the live stream before. All the training courses at Home Recording Made Easy are all 5 to 6 years old, with the exception of the 2 new ones I just did for the PreSonus Studio One version 7. All the other ones are 5, 6 years old. So in 2025, I'm systematically replacing the old courses with brand new courses, brand new content, brand new music, brand new files, all that stuff. And every month I'm going to release another one. So Mixing Made Easy Volume 1 comes out in January. It's already done. Mixing Made Easy Volume 2 comes out in February. That's already done. Mixing Made Easy Volume 4, I'm about 2/3 of the way done. That's going to come out in March. And then we have our songwriting and production volumes. I think we might have spoke about this last time, where I'm working with my friend and colleague, Brandon Van Allen. He did a lot of work with us on the Cover Song Mixing Challenge. If you guys were a part of that in 2024, that was a lot of fun. We're actually working together on a songwriting and production course, mixing and mastering of a song from scratch. 3 volume set. Volume 1 will come out in the beginning of January. Volume 2 sometime in the late spring, early summer. Volume 3, that'll finish off the series, will come out sometime in the beginning of the fall of 2025. So those courses are all coming up at Home Recording Made Easy, plus some other things as well. So there's a lot of new stuff, a lot of new training courses, a lot of new fresh training courses coming. Some mixing contests we're going to do next year as well. We're going to work with folks like Audioscape. It's going to donate some gear to give away, some prizes. And we got some other cool companies that are going to do the same. Same thing with some plugins. So we got a lot of stuff, I think Softtube, the Console 1, they're the fader, and the new one. I think we're going to give that away. We're going to give away, I believe we're going to give away some Solid State Logic stuff. I'm meeting with Solid State Logic. I have a meeting with them on Monday, actually. My good friend and colleague that I've worked with many times in the past, Rick Novke, who used to be the vice president of sales and marketing over PreSonus for years, and that's how I met him. And we did a lot of work with Studio One together over the years. He has since left, and he has become some heavyweight in sales over at SSL, which is great. So he's going to be working with them on a lot of the, I think primarily a lot of maybe the desktop audio interfaces. They got a lot of new stuff coming out too. And so we're going to work with them as well. I'm meeting with them next week to talk about some new product demos and things I can do for them to bring the Home Recording Made Easy audience some of the more affordable SSL component stuff, real high quality, but in the more affordable price range, and hopefully get some of that gear to give away as prizes for some of our contests that we're going to do next year. So that we're going to do that. So a lot of stuff at Home Recording Made Easy. Tons of stuff coming up. So that's what we're going to be doing. Let's see who else is here. Let's see. Fanny TV's here. Nautica's here. Hey, yo, what's going on? Audio Maximo is here. Thanks for your videos. I enjoyed them. Cheers from Pittsburgh. Thank you so much, man. You're very welcome. Thank you for watching all the way from Pittsburgh. I really do appreciate it. If anyone has any questions about anything, please let me know. I'll get to them in the chat. Let's see what else. So for the mixing music analog stuff, we're going to do things a little differently in 2025. We're still going to do, show you new gear and stuff as new gear comes in. But that new gear is coming in at a lesser rate because I obviously got too much stuff. And I don't need every piece of gear in the world to come in here to do a demo unless I actually think I can use it in my studio. So we're going to do some of that stuff. I got a real cool one, and I'll tell you about in a little bit. If you stick around for the live stream, I got a really cool thing you're going to love with mixing music analog. But as far as video content goes, moving forward, it's going to be more about actual mixing. Yeah, we got all the gear stuff, but mixing workflow tips, doing some maybe multiple part series on working through an entire song. Just going through some of the things that I do and just kind of doing more mixing types of videos as opposed to just gear demos. And although we do the point of view mixing with the GoPro on my hat and stuff, you guys seem to like that. We'll do some more of those, but those are only usually 20 or 30 minutes long, and I don't really talk at all through those. You just see me kind of working with the stuff, which people like. But I want to do some more where I'm actually talking you through some of the workflow, the concepts, the techniques, the workflow with a console and hardware, and some of the limitations and things, how you work with the DAW and all that stuff. So those are going to be some more of the types of videos we're going to do in 2025, as opposed to, mostly gear demo stuff. But we got some cool gear demo stuff coming up, which we'll talk about. Hey, Dwayne, what's going on, man? How are you? Zona says he connected with Rick on the Harrison 32C. Oh, cool. That's right. SSL and Harrison. Duh, I forgot, right? One company. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if, it's a good point. I don't know what we'll do with, I don't know if I'll do anything with him with Harrison stuff, but we're going to hopefully want to develop a more working relationship with SSL, because I don't really have one up till this point. And I love their stuff. Obviously, I'm sitting in front of a console, and I love solid state logic. And they get a lot of great, over the last 3 or 4 years, they've really focused heavily on the, on the smaller scale home studio, right? With all their little interfaces, the Big 6, which is a little bit more of a pricey piece, the UF8, the UC1, the UF1, all of that stuff. And I've done videos, some of those videos on their controllers, but I've never really looked at their audio interfaces. That's something that I want to do. And I'm sure they have a bunch of new products coming out next year. So Rick and I are going to talk through that hopefully on Monday. That's part of the discussion that we're going to have. I would agree, Nautica. Let's get some more thumbs up. I don't even know how many people are watching, but whoever's here, welcome. And if you're watching on the replay later on, welcome to you as well. Oh, let's see. So, do anyone have anything you want to talk about before I move on down my list of things I want to tell you? Let's see what else we got. We talked about that. We talked about, oh, by the way, if you haven't seen it yet, the Mixing Hybrid Hard Rock contest winners was announced on the 15th of this month, about 5 days ago. If you go to Home Recording Made Easy and go to the Mixing Hybrid training course, you'll see a link to get to the contest page where I show a video of the 3 winners, who won, what they won, all that stuff. Those prize packs are going to ship out right after Christmas. But the 3 winners have been contacted, and they know what they won, which is really cool. I'm really excited to give away a bunch of gear from Z&H Designs this time around, as well as kit plugins. We gave away, I think, 2 of the Blackbird bundle plugin packs, the whole bundle, which is worth over $1,000 at this point. So we got a bunch of plugins from them. And so yeah, if you want to go check out who won the contest, go check those out. And we're going to do, like I said, we're going to do at least probably three or four mixing contests next year. Definitely for the hybrid mixing ones. And then also for probably a couple of the ones on home recording made easy. As a new course gets released, I like to tie it together with a training course. So that's what we're going to do. We may even actually do one over YouTube. I'm not sure yet. I'm still working out some of those details, but there'll be more gear and plugins to give away to all of our lucky followers and supporters of the channels. So if you want to win some cool gear and you want to, get involved in a mixing contest, check that stuff out. We're going to be doing more and more of it. We may even do another cover song mixing challenge next year. I haven't talked to Brandon about that, but that's possible. We'll see what the workload's like. But I want to be able to give you guys free gear if I can, and free plugins if I can. These companies are willing to step up, then that's awesome. Okay. Wooden Doors, how are you, brother? Does the quality of your patch cables make a big difference? Tried Mogami patch cables? Yes, it makes a huge difference. In my entire studio is Mogami Gold, and also mixed in, I would say 75–80% of them are Mogami. The other 20–25% are Jumper Z, which are the same high quality cables. If you wanted to, at the beginning of the year, Wooden Doors, I did like 4 or 5 videos where I reconfigured and relayed out my whole studio. And in one of those episodes, we talked about the cables, the cost of the cables, and we went into a little bit more of a rant on the quality of the cables. Does it make a big difference? It does. If you have a studio with a lot of gear and lots of cables, then the cables make a big difference. Even on a small setup at home in a home studio, I wouldn't buy the cheapest cables you can get. But do you need to have all Mogami patch cables if you're only running 1 or 2 pieces of gear? If you're just hooking up, a few microphones to an interface, yeah, you probably don't have to go that high end because you don't have many cables in your system. But if you have a system like this, it makes a huge difference. Huge, huge difference. And we've talked a lot about that on the channel throughout this year. Some in like I said, those studio reconfigure videos. Some of the videos I did when Dave was here and we were doing live streams. There was a time where we didn't have all Mogami Golds. And the reason why we didn't, around 2020, 2021, if you all remember, we had a big part shortage due to COVID. And I had a hard time getting cables. And I had maybe 20 or 30% of Hosa Pro cables in this rig because I couldn't get anything else at the time. And I'll tell you what, I get nothing but issues with noise, with stuff cutting in and out, with the left and right. One side was louder than the other. I mean, Hosa makes good stuff, again, if you're not using a ton of their cables. But as soon as they were available, I just bit the bullet and said, you know what? This studio has so much money invested in it that I'm not going to cheap out on cables. So once I went Mogami Gold and mostly and then Jumper Z, I've never had any of those types of issues. I don't have any noise issues, no buzzing, no humming. I mean, the system is dead quiet. And a lot of that has to do with the power and the way I structured the power source, and then also all the cabling. So I would say, yes, it makes a big difference. And the thing about Mogami cables as well, 2 things. One, you can buy them used on like Reverb and stuff, and they're still fairly pricey. They hold about 70% of their value, but they last forever. You're going to buy them once, you'll never buy them again. So I would say yes. If you can use high quality cables, use them. They do make a difference. They do. Are you going to do more POV videos? I've learned more about using less plugins, even though I use plugins and treat them like hardware. Yeah, well, I'm going to do some more POVs. Yeah, I'll do a few more. People seem to like those, and they're quick. They're only 30 minutes. And, they're not, as you know, if you've watched them, it's not a full mix. It's basically me just getting a balance and patching in a few pieces of gear. It's really all it is. But yeah, I'll do more of those because they're fast and people seem to like those. And then, like I said, I'm also going to do the more full mix breakdown stuff. And again, Robert, as you already mentioned, and for anyone who's watching from the Home Recording Made Easy audience, even if you don't have a bunch of hardware, when I teach this stuff in the hardware, you can absolutely just translate that same kind of thought, concept, and technique and teaching to plugins. You really can. You know, whether we're doing certain EQ moves on the console, you could do that with your EQ in the box, you know? The sound is just a little different, that's all. So even if you're not into hardware and you're only in the box because you're not into all this, you could, believe me, the way I teach all of my courses, it doesn't matter whether you're using hardware and plugins, and it doesn't matter what DAW you're using, and it even doesn't matter what tools you have. They're all concepts and techniques that can be applied to any set of tools that you have. It's all mostly really foundational stuff. Good question though, Robert. John, if Dave was to win one of those contests, would you ship to the Philippines? Oh, if you were to win, I will ship out of the country as long as you are anyone outside the U.S., you're responsible for the shipping charges and any kind of, you know, taxes or customs or duties depending on your country. And sometimes it's depending on where it's shipping. Sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes it's not because it'll cost you too much to do that. But yeah, I can't eat the cost shipping out of the U.S. In the U.S., part of the contest, I ship it for free. But as soon as it gets out of the U.S., then you guys are responsible for anything that you got to pay your country for that stuff, if that makes sense. XLR or TRS, which of the two should you mostly have in live sound and recording? Should you not even use an instrument cable? Well, if you're recording an instrument, you should use an instrument cable. Can a TRS go into an electric guitar and into a TRS mixer? I mean, technically it can, but the impedances and stuff, usually you're going to have an instrument like a guitar is going to be an unbalanced cable. So when you're recording instruments, you can use instrument cable. XLR and TRS are both balanced. So I typically use more XLR than TRS, but there's nothing wrong with using TRS cables. They're balanced cables. But in an instrument, you should use an instrument cable. Bye, Braxel. See you later. You could come back and watch the replay. Enjoy the party. Redco's House of Cables are good too. Never heard. No, I shouldn't say I've never heard of them. I have heard of them. I just have never used them. They might be a Mogami. They may be Mogami. Maybe they are. I heard of the cables, but I've never used them. You know who's another one who makes good cables, but they make them more for like, you know, a microphone and instrument cables is us. I just bought some. Runway Audio, I think is their name. They make good quality cables as well. Hey, Mike. Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you for the super chat, Wooden Doors. I really do appreciate it. Favorite vocal EQ? Pultec. Guitar, API, Trident, or SSL EQ? Generally, well, I'll use SSL EQ on guitars all the time because I have them in the console. But like big, heavy, distorted electric guitars, API I love as well. Tridents are cool. I have a pair of Tridents. I don't really use them anymore. I'm probably going to sell them soon. I have no use for them. So yeah. Cool. As long as it's considered a gift, there's no fee. Oh, for shipping? Okay, yeah. Then if it doesn't cost, yeah. I got to see. Like if it costs me an arm and a leg to ship it overseas, and you know, I would have to see. I got to be careful. I say this. I've never shipped anything to the Philippines. I think you asked for. If it's going to cost me hundreds of dollars to ship something, I can't do that. In the U.S., I can ship for free. Outside of the U.S., it depends on the cost. Right? Depends on the cost. Oh, yes. Don't worry. My daughter and my wife are probably upstairs making those Santa cookies as we speak. And Santa won't get them by the time we're done with them. We'll be eating them right here. You got a Topaz console. Ooh, nice. Nice, Emperor. Really cool, man. It's in good shape. You have to do some work on it, which you must have bought it used then. Right? Wind Chime Production. Hey, Wind Chime, how are you? Let's see. My studio monitors are the Yamaha 8s. Okay. I want to upgrade. Just curious about your opinion. Was thinking about the Footprints 03. Is that the Barefoots? I don't know anything about them. The only monitors I've used for probably the last I don't even know when, is Focal. And I've used three different models of the Focals over the years, and I am just so used to them. I don't work on anything else, and I'm using the Focal Trio 6s, the new STs, and they're the best monitor I've ever used. But you know, monitors are a very personal thing, very personal, and they all sound different, man. And you could get used to anything, right? You could get used to anything. So, I don't know. I don't know much about the Barefoots. I mean, I know they're real high-end stuff, if that's what you're talking about, but I've never used them. We hear API. I don't know what it stands for. API is a company. What is API even? I should know what those letters mean. And Americans. It's a high-end gear company. I wish I knew what it meant. George, hey, Uncle Dave, first time checking in. Hey, George, what's going on, man? Been watching your videos for 3 years. Thank you so much. And you have a few of the courses. Which ones do you have? How do you like them? Thank you for picking them up. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad the videos are helping, and hopefully the courses are helping you. Redco made all your breakout boxes. Okay, cool. That's a second for Redco. Nice. Nice. Cool. All right, keep typing your questions. So, some gear that we got coming in for mixing music analog. I'll tell you about, well, I think I already told you about the Audioscape Fair Comp. The Audioscape 609 is coming. We also have another Gain Lab audio piece coming. Their stereo Varimu called the Dictator. That'll be here sometime late in the end of the first quarter, I think they told me. So that's going to be cool. But here's a piece of gear we're getting that I think is really cool. And it's too bad Braxel left, because I think he's asked about this before. But every time I do a live stream, somebody asks me, and I'll scroll up and get to all your questions, man. Don't worry. If you guys want your question to get to the top of the list, feel free to hit the super chat. So people ask me every single live stream now, at least almost every live stream, everyone asks about the patch bays and all the cables. And people say, with all that hardware, I can't tell you how many times people have asked me about Flock Audio. And so, you ever heard of Flock Audio? Have you ever tried the Flock Audio? How come your studio doesn't have a Flock Audio? And we've talked about it before. And of course, I know Flock Audio. I've heard of them. They've been around about, I don't know, 8 years or so, give or take. 8 or 10 years they've been making stuff. They're the ones that make the digitally controlled patch bay, which eliminates the need to have to patch any cables and have the mess of spaghetti like you have on a patch bay, which is cool. But what's more impressive about Flock Audio is it's all digitally controlled inside of a proprietary plugin. It's like a virtual patch bay in a plugin format, where basically you can mix and match different hardware chains, save them as presets, and you can also then A/B them in real time without ever having to leave the sweet spot of the mixing position. You never have to go touch the gear unless you're going to adjust the knobs, right? But then you could come back and you can, at the click of a button, you can, let's say, for example, for folks that don't know, you can, for example, say, let's say you wanted to take an acoustic guitar and you wanted to run it through, let's say, an API EQ into an 1176 compressor, or vice versa, right? And then you wanted to hear what that sounded like, and then you wanted to quickly, without having to go repatch any gear, you wanted to hear that same acoustic guitar now on, let's say, an LA2A compressor with an SSL EQ, or something like that, or, something like that. And then once you have those presets set up, you can just go A/B, 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 and you can hear the differences in the hardware in real time, which to me is the biggest selling feature of that product, which is so cool. And people have asked me about it before. And the reason why I didn't have it was because it's pretty expensive to do a studio of this size with all the ins and outs that I would need. Probably run somewhere between $13,000 and $15,000 or $18,000 to do that. Whereas having some patch bays, even Switchcraft patch bays, you're only talking about $4,000 plus the cables, maybe $4,500 versus $15,000, right? So that's why I've never really looked at it, because it was just didn't make sense from a price perspective. However, I had a nice meeting with Flock Audio this week. I got hooked up with them through Audioscape because we were talking about doing a series of videos I mentioned earlier, where we're gonna put a mix together with all the Audioscape gear, and we're gonna switch things out and demo stuff, and listen to certain elements with certain pieces and switch them out. And when we talked about doing that series, Chris has said to me from Audioscape, "Hey, my good buddy Darren, the owner of Flock Audio, that would be a perfect companion piece to do stuff like that, videos and content like that." And I said, "Oh, I heard of Flock Audio," anyway. So anyway, I got hooked up with Darren and we spoke for about an hour. Super nice guy. And he's actually going to loan me a Flock Audio system. They have a big unit that has 192 point in and out, which is just enough to do this studio. It's called the XT. It's their most expensive unit. He's going to send it to me for demo for a few months to see if I like it and to do some content for it. Because there is no one on YouTube that has a large studio like this with that kind of a patch-based system. And we talked a little bit about some of my concerns about a system like that. Number one, it's, if the software solid? Is it glitchy? Number two, if the box goes down, your whole studio's down. We talked about all those things in other live streams. Anyway, Darren's a super nice guy. Really, he understands, he hears about those things all the time, but they've been doing this now 10 years, and he says the stuff is rock solid. And I said, if you're willing to send one over, man, I'd love to try it. I'd love to see what the hype is all about. And I'd love to create some content and report to my followers, because they ask me about Flock all the time. Can that system really work in a studio like this and be reliable? And part of the problem too, and I expressed this to Darren, he's really cool. He was like, "Yeah, man, put it through its paces." He's not even nervous about it at all. Goes, put it through its paces, tell your viewers what you find, which so I'm going to do. If it's not a stable piece of equipment, you guys are going to know about it. And if it is, you guys are going to know about it. But one thing that I expressed to him was, if I were to buy one of those from Sweetwater or something like that, you only get about 30 days to play around with it to decide whether you want to return it or not, if it's going to work for you. And to me, honestly, a product like that, an important piece like that in this studio, 30 days is not nearly enough time for me to road test a product like that. I would want 2 to 3 months of using it virtually every day to know whether that thing is going to stand up in a commercial studio that does, a business, a real commercial room. And he was totally down with that. So working with them, I'm able to borrow one for a longer period of time, which is really great, and really be able to test it out, and let you guys know, how does it work? It would be killer if it works the way it's intended and marketed to work. Not only does it save all the damn cables, but again, to be able to audition and save hardware presets and chains and instant recallability, that's huge. And I guess they also got some stuff coming with the app too. It's also an iOS, app, something with the recall, where I guess you could go over inside of the app with your phone, take pictures of your hardware, and it'll put it into the desktop app, and everything's all recalled. It just sounds so cool. I mean, he's really thought it out really, really well. So we're going to see. So anyway, sometime in the next month to 2 months, as soon as he has one in stock, he's going to send me one, and we're going to test this thing out. And I'm going to let you know, because you guys have asked me about this every single live stream. Someone asked me about Flock Audio, and I've always been like, well, I'm not going to go buy one for everything that I just said. But now that I have a contact here with Flock Audio, and they're willing to let me demo one for a long enough period of time to see if it actually will fit, and allow me to do videos and tell you guys what I think about it, and you guys will get to see it in action. I think that's really cool. And so I got to say thank you to Flock Audio and to Audioscape, who set me up with Flock Audio, because we're going to use Audioscape gear and Flock Audio gear to work on some of this stuff I was talking about earlier. So anyway, we're going to have a Flock Audio party, boys and girls, and we're going to check it out. And if it's awesome, it's awesome. And if it's not, I'm going to tell you that it's not. I'm sure it's great. I only have a couple of concerns about the consistency of it. But I have no reason to believe that it's not going to be rock solid, because I've never heard any negative stories about it. I've never saw a video where someone wasn't happy with it, although there's not a lot of YouTube content on Flock Audio, especially the Big XT, which is, I think, the name of the unit, the big boy. And I haven't seen a single YouTube video where they've actually integrated it with a console. So that'll be unique in and of itself, and it'll let all our console owners know, if you're looking into that kind of a system, is this worth it? And the last point that I'll make too, also you can integrate, not sure how, but apparently you can integrate a Flock Audio system with an existing patch bay as well. So even if you wanted one of their smaller systems for certain pieces of gear, and you wanted to keep your conventional patch bay for other pieces of gear, not sure why you'd want to do that, maybe for budgetary reasons, don't know, but I guess you can do that with their system as well. We're going to go through it all, man. We're probably going to have a whole bunch of videos around that. So that's going to be really, really fun. So that's some of the big news I wanted to tell you about tonight over Mixing Music Analog. So let me scroll back up. I see a lot of people coming in on the chat. Let's see. Let me just roll down here. Okay, we talked about the monitors for Windshine Productions. A lot of people talk, okay, oh yeah, API, you guys talked about API, right? Okay. Let's see. Have I ever tried, Wooden Doors wants to know if I ever tried the Mag EQ, the Airbanders Nights. I use the plug-in all the time, the universal audio version of it. I love it. I never tried the hardware. It's been one of those ones on the list I said I'd love to get at one point, but I have tried the plug-in many times and I love it. Nautica says, Cali audio monitors is what you have. Cool, you bought a pair for 150 per. Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about them because they're super affordable, and I guess for what you're paying for them, they sound really great. It's what I've been told. So that's cool. Do you perceive, hey, Product Woo, do you perceive a difference between using a patch bay or using inserts that are directly connected to an interface? You know, I never did an A/B comparison of that. I mean, there was a time when my rig was way smaller, long before I had a console, where I had just a few pieces of gear patched into the interface directly without a patch bay, but that's going back several years. So but I don't perceive, like, using the patch bay, I don't remember there being like, oh wow, something sounds different to me, but I've never A/B compared them. I mean, almost every studio that has more than just a handful pieces of gear uses patch bays and has been for decades. Oh, right. Automated Process Incorporated, API. Right. I knew I should have known that off the tip of my tongue. Do you plan on mixing in Atmos? Not anytime soon, no. We talk about that a lot too on the live stream. I don't get any clients asking me about it. I'm not ready to make that kind of investment. It sounds like it would be a lot of fun, but from a business perspective, I really have no real plans to do it anytime soon. I do have one or two engineers that mix in Atmos that I can use as like a subcontractor. If I do get a project where they want an Atmos mix, I can work with a third party to get that mix done for me and my client, but I have no plans to do it. No plans to do it anytime in the near future. I've told people ever since Atmos has been, you know, people have been talking about it. I haven't had a single client even ask me about it, not one. So I'm seeking an interface with at least 24 analog outputs. Any suggestions? Yeah, you're gonna get either Apogee, Antelope. They have units that will have that many in one unit. You can daisy chain smaller ones together if you wanted to. Like if you wanted a standard interface will typically have 8 direct outs, 8 1/4-inch outs. You can get 3 of them, put them together, you make it an aggregate device, but then you may have some issues with clocking and those kinds of things. So I've never used any Apogee stuff, but I know they make really high-end gear. I use a Antelope Galaxy 64. I love it. So you can check out the Orion series by Antelope. They have what is it? The Orion 32 has 32 outs. Check that out. Those are good. Those are good pieces of gear. This guy, hey, this guy. Third for Redco. Oh, cool. That's a third person. Great quality, rack components, build your own units. Great responses and helpful. I'll have to check them out. That's good, man. So maybe there's a, an alternative to Mogami. Are they expensive? All right. Yep. Same thing with the API. Cool. Flock demos will be epic. It will be. I'm excited, man. I'm so grateful that he's willing to send me a unit to really try. You know, to really make sure. And, you know, I like those patch bays are not going to, I'm not taking those out. They're staying right where they are. And we're going to put the flock behind the patch bays on a rack, and we'll put a camera on it. Although there's not much to see. It's just the front of it's just the plain black units. But we'll do a bunch of videos installing it and all of that. But I'm going to put it behind the racks, right behind the patch bays, so I can just unplug them, plug them right into the flock. And if this thing doesn't work the way I'm hoping that it's going to work, I can just unplug it from the flock and put it right back into my patch bays, and everything goes right back up and running. So we're not taking those patch bays out until I've used that thing for at least a few months. At least a few months. So they're going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. What are your thoughts on running 4U SSL UF8s? I ran 3 of them. It does work. I have a video at Home Recording Made Easy. You'll see it. I had 3 UF8s, a UC1, and a UF1. No, I don't know if I had the UF1 at the time, but I had 3. Yeah, I had 3 of the 3 UF8s and a UC1, and it was cool. But I'll tell you, man, I've tried every single DAW controller there is, except for the Avid stuff, because they're ungodly expensive, and they're really more, I think they're really more well integrated with like Pro Tools, which I'm not a user of. But all the other ones, SSL, Behringer, Icon Pro Audio, PreSonus Fader Port, Softtube Console 1, I think that's it. You can check the channel. 5 companies. My favorite of the group was the SSLs, but in all honesty, because you guys get the benefit of having someone who works on a real console every single day, and that can push my chair about 30 feet away and be right in front of a DAW controller, and I can tell you the differences. And I gotta tell you, no matter what DAW controller I use, even the UF8s, as cool as they are, I found them more fidgety, and it's not, they didn't work. It did not even come close to working like it is working on a real mixer. It just doesn't. The biggest problem that I have with them, and again, there's workarounds, and once you build up the muscle memory, I guess it's okay. But there's the biggest problem with any of those controllers, really 2 problems. Problem number 1, with the exception of the UC1, which is a plug-in controller, all the other DAW controllers that have faders that can do plug-in control and plug-in mapping, it is clunky at best, and some of it's almost completely unusable. It does technically work, and it does on the UF8 as well. I used it. It's so not any faster than just grabbing the mouse and moving the plug-in to me. So that's the first problem, is that the thing that you do in the most when you're working in a DAW and working all in the box, the number 1 thing that you do more than anything else in a session is opening and controlling and manipulating plugins. That's the number one thing you do the most of. And so most of those plug-in controllers are not very good. The UC1 is better for their plugins, for their channel strip. It's super fast. That is like working, that feels like working on a desk. It's as fast as working on a desk. It is. I know you can now map any third-party plugin to that UC1, and I've done it, but again, it's clunky because you got to remember where the controls are, whereas the UC1, if you're using an SSL channel strip, it looks just like the channel strip that I'm looking at. And it feels like that the knobs are the same size, the resistance of the knobs are the same. It's very fast as long as you're using the channel strip that it's designed for. As soon as you move away to another plugin, I think it's clunky. I don't personally like it. The second problem with those controllers, to me, now you're talking about having 3 of them, which will give you 24 faders, which is so cool. As long as you don't need to ever bank over and move the faders over, you're cool. So many times, if you have like a 45 track session and if you have to advance over or bank over, where maybe your kick drum started on track number 1 on fader 1, as soon as you hit that button, that kick now moves to another fader physically. And what I found myself doing was a lot of looking at the scribble strips and a lot of hunting and pecking around to grab the right faders. And it didn't feel right to me. And I tried it for months. I tried working with it for months. And it felt so clunky to me. I know they market it as, oh, it's just like kind of like working on a real console. No, it's not. It's not even remotely close for me. That's just me. But I feel the SSL UF8s are the best 8-channel controllers that are out there that I've seen. The highest quality, and they feel really good, and they're built really well, and they're reliable. But I found it slowed me down more than just working with a trackball in the DAW. And that's my honest opinion. And that's not a knock against the SSL. It's knock against any of those things. I really tried to see if I can emulate this workflow to a degree, and I know it'll never be exactly the same. It's not even close. It just doesn't feel the same. It just doesn't. Hope that helps. I probably bursted your bubble, but I just want to be honest. Hello from Kosovo. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you, Audio Sound Doctor. Let's see, George says, I have a Studio One mixing and mastering courses. Oh, cool. Great. I've watched the first 2 videos on the Studio Live S32. Oh, yeah, that's the ones on YouTube. Use Studio One 6 Pro and use the 32SX as your interface. That's a nice system. Yeah, the Studio Live 32 is a great mixer, especially if you're just recording in your studio for bands, got lots of inputs. Great live mixer. That was another mixer that I didn't like with, as far as the DAW control mode, I don't like it. I think again, it's clunky. But it's probably one of the better ones for Studio One because it's integrated well with Studio One. But it's a nice centerpiece, right? If you do some recording, and especially if you record bands and stuff, to have that in your studio, it's a nice centerpiece. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Thank you again for the super chat. Top 2 options to share waves. What's that? Wooden doors. Top 2 options to share large waves with clients. Oh, how do I share them? Oh, okay. Well, you can use something like Dropbox, Google Drive. But what I do when I'm mixing over here is I have an app that sits right in the DAW called Mixup, M-I-X-U-P. It's made by Pure Mix. It's a nice little app to be able to collaborate, upload a mix into it, can make a WAV file. A client can, with the app, can download it, can listen to it, can put comments and give you feedback right inside the app, which queues up to the timestamps in your DAW. Really nice. That's how I do it currently. But aside from that, Dropbox or Google Drive, WeTransfer, it's another one, right? The PreSonus PD70 as a live stream mic. I used to use it. I think I still have it in my back room. It's a good mic. For the money, it's a great mic. You have to buy a cloud lifter to use a Shure mic that looks similar to the PreSonus. Can't remember the name. Yeah, the PreSonus is the PD70. You're talking about the Shure SM7B. They both need a cloud lift. The PD70 doesn't technically need one, but I always used one with it. Because unless you have an interface with super, super, super high output and very clean output preamps, you have to jack up the gain so much you would get a lot of noise. So I would always use a cloud lift anyway. But I used to use that as a live stream mic. I used it for a while. I use it for YouTube videos. It's a nice mic. It's nice. I think it's like for 99 bucks. You can't beat it. It's a good mic. Hey, William. Thanks for all you do, Uncle Dave. Have improved my life. Oh, that's great, man. Just want to acknowledge. Oh, thank you. Really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. Very kind. Hey, Bruno, what's going on? Good to see you as well. Is it more important to think about the mix or to feel the mix? Thank you. Oh, without a doubt, it's feel the mix. I mean, yeah. I mean, mix, yeah. For me, to me, it's like one and the same. You are thinking about the mix, but mixing to me is a more creative thing. You know, once you get everything, the session all set up and it actually comes out to the console or mixing, it is more about making the song feel right, feel good. That's important. There is a difference between a mix that sounds really good and a mix that feels good, and they don't necessarily always go together. Just because a mix sounds sonically great, it doesn't mean it feels great. And again, this is all very subjective, right? But to me, it's more about the feeling of the mix. And a lot of that comes down to the automation parts of it. But overthinking a mix is not a good thing either. Knowing your tools, having the basic foundations of mixing down and under your hands makes a big difference. So you're not spending too much time on any one thing unless there's a problem. Mixing, I wouldn't say fast, but mixing fairly fast to not over-listen to the song, your gut instinct, your first instinct to what needs to be done in a mix. All that just comes with time and practice. So I think everybody starts out when they're first learning, thinking about the mix, because they're thinking about, you know, how do I EQ the kick drum, and more concerned with the frequencies that we're boosting or cutting or whatnot than they are anything else. Those kinds of things. But as you get more experience and those things just become second nature, then it's more about feeling the mix and how you make that mix feel good to a listener, and how you get a mix to sound exciting to a listener. Hope that answers your question. Zona says he uses inserts with his interface all the time and it works great. Cool. The Motu 24AO. IO, you mean, right? Yeah. Motu makes good stuff. They make good stuff. I know some studios that use Motu and they like it a lot. Motu's cool. How large is your analog chain on the mix bus? I have 3 Wes Audio pieces, love Wes Audio, and the Successor, another good piece on the mix bus. I don't like to mix without it. Yeah, no, those are all great pieces. So my mix bus will change from time to time, but recently it's been, it comes out of the board, it goes to the SSL compressor, then it hits my Pultec stereo EQ, and then it goes to my Neve master bus transformer. That is my hardware chain. And then when it comes back into the DAW, the print track, there's a couple of plugins there, couple of little specialty plugins that I've talked about in a couple of my last videos. But that's the hardware chain. It's really 3 pieces. It's a compressor, an EQ, and then the master bus transformer. And the master bus transformer, I primarily just use it for the stereo width, the width portion of it, and the silk circuit. I don't always use the compressor, and I don't use the EQ typically because I use the Pultec. I could probably get away with it and just use the master bus transformer, but that's what I use. And so the successor is a nice, that's Heritage Audio, I believe. Which West Audio? I have some West Audio pieces as well. Matter of fact, I have the NG bus compressor. That's my drum bus compressor. If that wasn't my drum bus compressor, that could absolutely be the master bus compressor. Without a doubt, that could be the master bus compressor. I love that thing. I use that. I also have the Dione, which is their SSL, compressor in the 500 series. And I have the RIA, which is their Very the tube compressor, which sounds great stereo, which sounds great on pianos, acoustic guitars, those kinds of things. And then I also use the West Audio NG Leveler, which is the automation system for this console that doesn't have automation built into it. So I use West Audio all the time. They make great stuff. What Neve style pre do you recommend? Hey, Daryl. BAA or Rupert Neve? I haven't used either one, but if you were asking me which one would I pick and it was a Neve style pre, I would use Neve. But not the BAE is not good. I don't know. I've never used it. But then again, I haven't used a Neve pre in the studio either. But if I was going to pick one or the other, I'd probably pick a Neve. Hi, Uncle Dave. Hey, what's going on? What do you think about the Waves Abbey Road RS124 compressor plugin? Thanks. I did a review on it on Home Recording Made Easy when it first came out. I've used it a few times. I thought it was cool. I don't use it a lot. I don't use plugins a lot. I use mostly hardware. I do use some plugins in the box. I have it, but I haven't used it in a while. But when it first came out, I remember doing a video for it, and I remember it being really good. I'm almost certain it was good. I would highly suggest you lean loudness meter on your master input to match Spotify and YouTube. Apple Music, you can drag and drop audio files and examine their loudness. Yeah, I have a plugin for that already. But you're right. I use the well, there's two of them that I use. I'll use Isotope Ozone 10 or 11, whatever one I have, for the mastering part, where I can for the maximizer, and I'll use their presets for the different streaming platforms. And then the other one that I'll use is the Slate Digital FGX2, which is another one which will have presets, so you can for different streaming platforms and those kinds of things. So I use that all the time. Either one of those two. Does the Motu have 24 I/O outputs? I don't know. I never used it. Oh, you went to the website? It's not clear? Really? I'm not sure. Redco also took over Coleman. Okay, Coleman Audio product line with Coleman's ultimate untimely passing. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Interesting. Okay, you guys are talking about Redco. Cool. Do you have any API gear in your rack? I do. I have the API, you can't see it, but yeah, I have the API 5500 stereo EQ. And then I have, not by API, by Cappy. Cappy makes two 500 series, the 560 API clones. I have those, but they're not genuine APIs. But I do have an API 5500 EQ, and I love it. Love it on guitars, love it on drum bus. I hear bad stuff about Icon, QCon controllers. I don't know. I don't really hear any bad stuff, but I demoed a bunch of their products, and they all worked fine for me. They were really cool. I guess I should say I didn't have them long enough to really put them through their paces to see if I'd have any bad issues with them. But when I did the demos for them and worked with them for a few weeks, they worked just great for me. I don't know, but we ended up giving them away. Let's see. I use automation on my board. Yeah, I think you mentioned that. Kind of basic, but very solid. Works for you. Yeah, I don't have automation in mine. So I use the West Audio NG levelers, and it works. It really does. I mean, it is a brilliant system. I'm surprised that a lot of people don't talk about it, because most consoles today don't have. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most consoles have automation in it, but like I said, you got to spend a ton of money to get that. So for a mixer like this, if you're, or not even it's not even if you have a console. If you have a bunch of hardware and you're running with a mouse and a keyboard, no console, and you're trying to run your mix through a bunch of outboard gear, the only way you could do automation post-processing is you got to commit everything and print everything back in, which works, but takes an enormous amount of time. This West Audio NG leveler system is brilliant for that stuff. It really works well. It really does. I would much rather have it built into my console, but I don't have it. So, how important is it to create a front, middle, and back in your mix? Do analog plugins create the texture and depth that come into play in the sense of creating some separation in the mix? Yes, does analog plugins, you mean analog plugin emulations? Yes. Some of them do. Yeah, it depends on which ones you're using. It is incredibly important that you have a front, middle, and a back. Not like an Atmos, but that you have some depth in your mix. It's not just done with analog style plugins. Also, you can do things with, if you understand compressors and you understand how to use reverb, you could create that depth using attack and release and those kinds of things. But it's extremely important. What you want to probably check out, William, if you're into using those third-party plugins or you're thinking about it, I have a course called Mixing with Analog Style Plugins Made Easy at Home Recording Made Easy. You want that course if you're into that kind of stuff, especially the plugin emulations. Most people buy all these third-party plugin emulations and have no understanding on how to use them. And then their mixes don't sound any better because they just see the plugin and it looks cool. And they think if you just throw it on there, everything sounds great. You know, it only does if you know how to use them right. And so anyhow, yes, but it's extremely important. Creating depth in a mix is important, but you have to know how to do it. And that's done with, again, attack and release and compressors, reverbs, delays. It's also done with panning and EQ and those kinds of things. Hey, Slim Creep, what's up? Good to see you. Like playing guitar through a modeler or a real tube amp, can't beat real tube amp. Well, yeah, I mean, I love a real tube amp, but I've used a lot of modelers, and the modelers are really good today. I've been demoing and working with the Fender Tone Master Pro. That thing sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. For like recording at home, especially if noise level is an issue, you can't beat some of the modelers today. Can't beat them. A real tube amp, the purists will say there's nothing exactly like it, and that's probably true. And they're fun, obviously, but a lot of times, depending on the tube amp, but that amp is usually a one-trick pony, where a good modeler, you can have multiple sounds, multiple amps, which is great. And that's the advantage of it, right? So yeah. The Tone Master Pro really surprised me how good that is. It's really good. At least I think it is. Thank you for the UF8 insight. I've been looking for a great DAW controller, maybe one of the higher-end SSL digital consoles. I may have the names wrong, but I believe the Origin, that's what this is, the AWS and the Matrix 2. Yeah, well, I mean, going from a UF8 that's, $1,300 or $1,400, and then you come to a console like this and it's $55,000. And if you go to the AWS, you start at $100,000 and go up. The Matrix is a little bit less, but the Matrix, I don't believe the Matrix has inputs on it. I don't believe. But that's also a $25,000 or $30,000 desk, I think. But yeah, that's, a DAW controller is not the same as working with an analog console. DAW controller has no sound, right? It's digital. You buy this for the sound and you buy it for the tactile feel. And even though the DAW controller, you'd say, well, it's faders is faders. No. It just doesn't feel the same. Not to me, it doesn't. But yeah, if you're looking at a high-end console, be prepared to spend a lot of money. But they're great if you got the money. Are you using a limiter at the end of your chain that mess up the mastering process? I use a limiter. I use a plugin. Like I said, it's usually either Isotope, Ozone, or it's the Slade FGX2. And the only reason why I use that, if the project is leaving my studio and going to a mastering engineer, then the mastering engineer, whatever level they want the mix to kind of come in at, is what I will deliver. And therefore, I'm not putting a limiter on it and bringing it up to volume. But if it's just going to be mixed, or if we're in the middle of a project and I'm sending a mix over to the client, I'll always put a limiter on it and get it up to what a final master from a volume perspective would sound like, so they get a feel for what a full volume track is going to sound like. But if it's going to mastering, I won't put a limiter on it. I'll make sure the mix ends up wherever that mastering engineer, how much headroom he wants. And usually, in my experience, it's been, if I give him a mix, you know, that peaks out around a -6 dB or so, they're usually, and then that gives them plenty of headroom to do whatever they're going to do. So I only put a limiter on it if I'm just going to bring it up to volume. And I don't, oh, here's the, I was just about to say, and here's the next question. Do you use clippers? And if so, what do you use them for? No. I don't clip, you know, I don't use things in clip, you know, the limiter and all of that. I know people like the sound of that. I don't, or people like to clip the converters in their interface. You know, not that I don't like the sound of it. I just have no real, you know, I've done it a couple of times. It's okay, but it's not something that really makes a big difference to me. With all the color and all the analog I got in this room, I don't really need to worry about that. But some people really like to do that. They like to go in and slam the limiter or whatever, and that's fine. That's just not me. Let's see, the DBX or distressors or Dione for hard rock drum bus. Oh, those are three different, well, they're VCAs, but for drum bus, probably the distressors. It depends on which DBX you're talking about. The Dione's really great too, but the distressors are a little bit more versatile. Distressors are great. Mike says he only has access to the Plugin Alliance API channel strip. Oh, cool. But I love the sound and I can get used all the time. Yeah, I think I've used that one before. You know who else makes a really good one is Kit Plugins makes the one from Blackbird Studio, which is nice. You're welcome, Mike. I'm glad you like them. And they're helping you and you're getting the results you want. Thinking about the West Audio NG leveler to drive a UTA. Eric Valentine demonstrates. I don't know that undertone. Parasum, I don't know that. The NG leveler is great. That must be a console of some kind. Yeah, the NG leveler, no one really talks about it. There's really no YouTube videos on it. I mean, I did one, but I'm really surprised it's not a more popular unit. Because lots of people use hardware, even if they don't use a console. How do you deal with automation, post-processing? You have to process everything back in. I think it's great. William says he has, of course, it's great. Thank you. That's all you have. Mixing with analog style plugins. That's right. Thanks, Mike. Someone has said he went from having 4 patch bays to 1. Love it. Nice. Is creating a 3D soundstage possible with the sexiest and most challenging part of mixing? Does it separate the men from the boys? The amateurs from the pros, so to speak? Automation in general, to me, the difference between a pro mix and an amateur mix usually lies in the automation. That's my opinion. I'm sure others would say the same, but maybe people have different thing. It's more than just a 3D soundstage, but yeah, the automation and making the mix sound exciting, that's the difference. That's the difference. A lot of people, they don't even bother with automation. It takes too much time, or they get it sounding good and they just print it, and that's okay. But really, that's where the difference is. I mean, there's other things too, obviously. I mean, that's assuming that, yeah, you can get a good balance and you know how to use EQ and compression and can get the mix to sound really great without any automation. Because I know people that do automation when the mix isn't ready for automation. You could screw up a mix too if you got too many things being automated, and, you know, depends on the music and all that, the kind of music and all that stuff, certainly. But once you have a mix that's sitting and sounds great, where you don't have to touch anything from top to bottom, and you got everything where you want it, that's when the automation begins, and that's where the difference is, I think. Hey, Brian. How are you? You're torn between the IK Multimedia Tape 80 and the UAD ATR mastering tape machine. The ATR, I think, is a great plugin. I have the Tape Machine 80, but I don't use it I don't really use it, so I really can't give you a one-to-one comparison. The Ampex does feel heavy on the bottom, but you can control that depending on the tape formula and the speed. But that's a great tape machine plugin. Oh, cool. I've never put my hands on the Harrison 32. I'm sure they're great. It's an expensive console. What would you suggest putting plugins on each track, or no plugins and making bus for groups? Well, it depends on, it totally depends on the project and the song. I use a busing system, whether I'm in the box or out of the box. And there's plugins and hardware on most of my buses, as well as my individual tracks. It totally depends. Not every individual track. There's EQ on just about every track, but there's not always compression on every track. More compression plugins when I'm working in the box, for sure. A lot less when I'm working with a console, because the console's like a big compressor in a lot of ways. So it totally depends. So again, if you want to learn about those kinds of mixing concepts, go to Home Recording Made Easy. I got courses for everybody. Based on your question, I would start with Mixing Made Easy Volume 1. That's where you want to start. That's where you want to start. And you get a 50% off today. Go out to the website. We're on a Christmas sale. Do I recommend the Origin? Absolutely. I'm sitting in front of one. I've had it almost 4 years. Almost 4 years. Thing's been rock solid. I love it. I've said this before and I'll say it again. There's only really one other console on the market that has the same amount of features, same amount of faders, same amount of I/O, same amount of stuff in the master section, I think, for the $50,000 to $60,000 price range, and that's the Audience. And I've never used the Audient, but I know two people that have them, and they love them, and I'm sure they're great. But I wanted an SSL. So yeah, in that price bracket, there's really only two consoles that has the same amount of faders. I mean, I know API makes some smaller ones, but they're smaller desks. They're not 32 long 30. They're not 64 I/O. So again, I think depending on your budget, it doesn't have recall in it, doesn't have automation in it. We've talked about that here before. So if you need those two things in a console, then this is not the desk for you. but you're going to spend 2.5 times the money to get those features. At least twice the money. At least twice the money. But you know what? Again, I don't miss the automation like we just talked about. I got that solved with the NG leveler. That solves my automation problem. Is it as good as having it in the desk? No, it's not. It's a little more clunky, for lack of a better word, but you get used to it and it works really well. And so I have all 32 faders can have automation post-processing on them with my 2 NG levelers, and each one of those NG levelers is about $2,000. So for $4,000, I have automation, post-processing automation available to me, just like a console that's 3 times the money, but it's not built into the console, so it's different. And as far as the recall, again, to me, that's not that big of a deal because I don't do very many of them. But if you want a desk that has recall software assist packages, that's great. That's awesome. But again, you're going to spend at least $100K, $150K. So it depends on your budget. Depends on your budget. I don't like clipper use. Cool. Neither do I. What do you use the THD on with the diode? I do. Not all the time. They have 2 settings, well, 3 settings off, low and high. Usually the medium is where I'll usually use it the most on that compressor, unless I really wanted to get gritty. Most times when I'm using the diode, I'm using either on the master bus or I'm using it on the drum bus, and so I'll usually use it on the more mild setting. Hey Paul, how are you? Automation is key. I really can't have crescendo if everything isn't at crescendo levels. Yep, that's true. But you gotta be able to balance the mix first, or else automation doesn't do anything. How would you use the ambience differently than you would use reverb? In regards to adding a little room and depth as opposed to creating lots of verb. I don't use lots of verb. Most of the time when you hear reverb in my mix, you don't hear it, you feel it more than you hear it, unless the song really calls for it. And sometimes it does. Most times it doesn't, especially on instruments, aside from vocals. I'm a very mild amount of reverb kind of guy. I don't like things that are drowned in reverb. That's just me. But again, sometimes you have to go against that philosophy if the track really calls for it. So using reverb plugins, using things like the early reflections part of a reverb plugin will create that so you don't have to drown it in reverb. I also, on this particular rig, I have an analog spring reverb by Audioscape that's brought in on a stereo return that I could put a little bit on every track, and I do. So every one of my mixes has a tiny, tiny bit of the Audioscape spring reverb across everything, just to give the whole track a little bit of size and a little bit of sense of depth. It's not much. And then I will use plugins in different areas where I feel like it needs it. But I don't use tons of reverb that you hear or tons of delays that you hear unless it really needs it. That makes sense? Hope that makes sense. Usually the 2 things when I hear, because I critique lots of mixes for people and people that are first starting out, the 2 things that most beginners overuse are compression and reverb. Usually when I get a beginner mix, it is drowned in reverb. And if you go listen to most commercial music, again, it depends on the style, but I'm talking about, Americana rock, pop, or, hard rock, country, that kind of stuff, blues. If you listen to most commercial release music, it doesn't sound like it's drowned in reverb. There's a lot of reverb in the track, but it's mostly felt than heard. It's usually very subtle. Usually. Hope that makes sense. You're welcome. Hey, Marcus, what's up? Thanks, Brian. Zona was considering the AMS Neve 16 channel. There's one in Brooklyn I might check out. Is that a what is that? The BCM MK2. I don't know if I know that unit. But you have an API, right? No automation on the group faders? No, not on this console. But I can, if I wanted to add another, you can add 4, I think, of those West Audio units together. If I wanted to put another one on this, I could. But a lot of times what I'll also do too is as I'm printing the final mix back into the DAW, I'll ride the console live. I do a lot of that too, which is not recallable, but I'll do a lot of that as well. So right now my groups don't have automation on them. I would do those live, but I could add another $2,000 and I could put it there too, which maybe one day I will. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Brian. What happens if you have more tracks in a song than the faders are available? That's where you have to do. We're going to do some of this in 2025. I'm going to show you guys how I deal with that. How do I set up a session to deal with that? So if you have, this console has 32 faders, 64 actually. I have 64 faders available at Mixdown. I never use 64. The most I ever use is 48. And I try my best to get everything down to 32, sometimes 44. And the way you do it is you have to do a lot of comping and combining, and you do a lot of stuff inside the DAW. So for example, a lot of sessions I get will have a kick-in mic, kick-out, kick sample, kick sub, 4 microphones. I'll never bring them out to 4 faders on the console. I will blend them in the box, route them out to a channel, and come to 1 fader. And then I'll either EQ the whole thing here and compress it if it needs it, or I'll do it in the box. So most times I'm doing it on the console. So that's one example if I could take 4 faders down to 1. Same thing if you have, say, tons of background vocals and you have, 12, 6 pairs of background vocals. I will blend them all in the box and bring it out to a pair of faders. That's how you have to do it. That's how you have to do it. And honestly, I like it better that way because when you have less faders to manage, it makes it easier. Even though I have 64 faders, I never use it. It's too many faders. It's too many faders to manage. So no matter how big the session is, we got to get it down. Like I said, I'll go as high as 48 faders, but that's rare. Usually it's 44 at the most. And most, 80% of the time, we can get it in 32. That's how you do it. When you're adding saturation in your chains, before EQ, after, or both. Usually it's after, but it could be both. Could be both. Usually when it's analog, is where I have the saturation is on the master bus transformer. That's the last thing it hits before it comes back in to be printed. So that would be after EQ, most times. For those prices, manually, I'll manually automate by hands. Yep. I hear ya. What are the 3 plugins you'd have a hard time living without? Well, in my hybrid workflow, if I'm working hybrid with the console and the plugins that I use, I am, and I just did a, well, there's some plugins that I would categorize as utility plugins that I won't, it's like Slate Trigger 2. I use that in almost every single mix. That I gotta have. That's an essential. Let's see. I like the Oxford Inflator. I use that all the time too. That's like a saturation kind of a thing. What else am I using on my master bus there? There's a universal audio plugin called K Stereo. That's an ambient recovery plugin. I'm using that all the time too. I don't use a lot of plugins when I'm working analog. If I was mixing all in the box, Got to have a channel strip, either SSL or a Neve. For me, that's essential. As far as, you know, single compressors and that kind of thing, you know, 1176 got to have, Pultec got to have. Those are my favorites, or ones that I would want to have in my rig no matter what. But I have the hardware of it now too, so hope that makes sense. Yes, Kit Plugins is really good. Their Blackbird bundle is awesome. And I have videos on the channel on all of them. Thank you, Wooden Doors. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you as well. That's right, Zona. You're damn right. If the Beatles can record on a 4-track, the rest of you got to shut up. It's not the gear, it's your skills. Well, it's actually the songwriting, right? Would you say that would you say that in many professional songs, the reverb on vocals is sidechained by the vocal so it stays out of the way? That and pre-delay depends on the genre, of course. I don't sidechain reverb with vocals. I don't know if in most professional, I mean, I've watched lots of pro engineers mix. I don't know if I've ever watched anybody do that. I'm sure the people out there that does it. A little bit of pre-delay, yes, depending on the genre. But yeah, they even make even some reverb plugins now, they have like that kind of ducking thing that kind of simulates a sidechain thing in it. FabFilter has one called the Pro R2, which I have, which I like. It does that kind of thing. But again, I don't put so much reverb on the vocal that it's, yeah, I don't get that crazy with it. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's examples where you would do that, but I don't know that I've ever sidechained a reverb with the vocal. I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm sure people do. You're welcome, Paul. What is the best virtual drum emulation out there? Probably Superior Drummer by Toontracks or Easy Drummer. Slate SSD5 is really good too. They're all good, man. But those would be my top 3. And I know there's other ones out there, Addictive Drums, and there's Get Good Drums, and I've heard all of them, and they all sound really good. But I like the Toontrack stuff because they're fully featured. If you're into drum programming and songwriting, you know, song construction and stuff, I like the Superior Drummer, Easy Drummer stuff the best. I've been into recording for 25 years. The more and more I realize the smartest people in pro audio, no matter what the question is, the best answer is always depends. And it's true. It is true. It really does. There is no one, you know, you do one thing and it works like that on every mix. It's almost never that way. Yeah, it really does depend. Everything is very track and song dependent. I mean, there's a lot of things you do similarly, but the other thing too, I realized over the years, the more and more I've done this, especially in the analog world, because the analog gear does a lot of the heavy lifting, is less is more. Less is more. And even in the box, you know, that's true too. You know, if you go check out my Mixing Made Easy Volume 1 course, all we use is a stock EQ. And we use a stock compressor on a handful of the tracks, and the track sounds great. EQ is the most important tool I think we have as mixers. It's the most important tool. Getting good EQ, good balance and panning, that, assuming you got a good song that's well recorded, obviously. You know, crappy song, crappy recording, crappy mix. That's simple. Great song, great recording, mix is going to sound good. At the very least. Should sound great if you know what you're doing. But, you know, it's about balance, panning, EQ. That's the bulk of it. Compression, Use sparingly, and it completely depends on the song and the track. There are certain times where the only compression I'm using is on the master bus and a lead vocal. There's lots of times where I don't compress the drums at all. Maybe a little bit on the drum bus, don't put a single compressor in anything. I mean, it depends. And then there's other times where I got to compress the kick, the snare, the toms, you got to compress everything. It really depends. It really depends. It depends on the way it was recorded. It depends on the musician that was playing the track. And what you're going for. You know what I mean? So that is true. So whenever you ask, engineers that know what they're doing, there's standard guidelines, sir, and there's certain things you do in every mix. But a lot of those more detailed questions really depends on the song, and it depends on the mix itself. It just does. Oh, that's good to know. That's about $400 off. So if you're looking for an NG leveler, there you go, $1,600. Soft-tube tape plugin. I don't think I've ever used it, but Soft-tube makes good plugins, so I would assume it would be good. If you got the time, bounce tracks through your console to consolidate, avoid digital summing, go group by group, phase align, those things. You can do that. You'll do that. You try to do that. You'll do that once, and you'll realize how much time that you... I can never run a business and do that. The amount of time it takes to do that is insane. But you can do it. If you got the time, like you said, bounce all the tracks, you can do all of that stuff. But I'm not doing that. If you have a kick and snare virtual instrument that comes in as stereo, should you convert it to mono? Usually I do. If I get a stereo track, a kick stereo track, I'll make it mono. Yeah. Yep. I mean, there may be a time where it would be stereo. I'm trying to think if I've ever had that happen to me. I don't think so. I don't know in what circumstance you'd want a kick drum to be stereo. Unless you got some kind of weird effect on it for effect, then maybe so. But yeah, normally it would be mono. What do you think of production on Tom Waits later? I don't know. I haven't heard it. Yep, the tune and the arrangement makes all the difference. Good song, good arrangement, good musicians, good mix. Crappy song, crappy arrangement, crappy playing, crappy mix. It's that simple. Mike says he uses a channel strip on every channel, then a handful of other plugins on various individuals. Yeah, the channel strip is like emulating a console, right? So you're going to EQ pretty much on every track. And on a channel strip, you may or may not use the compressor, depending on the track, right? So yeah, so that's just really emulating a real console. And then what you do beyond that is really just whatever's needed for that particular song. Right? That's how that works. Okay, I'm already down to the end of the chat. Let me see. Oh, I got one more in Zona. And anytime I want to buy more gear, I just try a different approach. I move my drum mics around all the time and I use them as EQs. That's absolutely right. That's just good recording technique. And if you could get you always hear that saying, get it at the source, get the sound at the source, right? You record it right and you get the sound that you want at recording, then mixing doesn't become a big chore. But more times than not, you don't get tracks like that. I don't always, well, I mean, I'd say half the time I do. And then sometimes I get tracks where it's not recorded really great. And you do the best you can with it. With drums, it's not too hard because you can always use samples. You could save bad drum recordings with samples. But that's hard when you got, other instruments that are not recorded well. Yeah, I play guitar. That's my main instrument. I can play drums a little bit. Enough to get by, but not any kind of a serious drummer. A real drummer would look at me and go, "You're not a drummer." I have a sound library called Complete by Native. Yeah, they make good stuff. All the drum sounds are in stereo. Okay. You don't have to convert things to mono. You don't have to. Colt Caparoon's YouTube channel, he says he uses the Audioscape 260 VU and the 1178 on drums. So I actually got both. If you had to, what would you use these? How would you use these two on drums? I don't typically use the 260 VU on drums. Not that you can't. I got so many other things I use on drums. I love the 260 VU on things like pianos and strings, background vocals. The 1178, sometimes I'll use on overheads, sometimes I'll use on rooms. But as somebody said a little earlier, you know what I'm about to say, right? It depends. It depends. Both those things are awesome pieces of gear. They can be used on anything, by the way. Especially the 1178. You upset the neighbors, Mike? Yeah. That's why I got to get a modeler. What did you buy my parents for Christmas? I bought them gift cards to go to dinner. That's what I did. Let's see what they buy me for Christmas. All right, do we have any more questions? Let's see. I think I told you everything I wanted to tell you this time out. Yeah, pretty much. Again, Christmas sale on all the courses. We're talking about some training tonight with some of you guys. Go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Get the coupon code is on the website. Put it in at checkout. Take 50% off. Go check all this stuff out. If you're a beginner mixer, if you're talking about mixing, check out Mixing Made Easy Volume 1 and Volume 2. If you're into the third party, if you're into like the analog style plugins, you know, we talked about mixing with analog style plugins. That's a great course. And if you're really just starting out, get yourself familiar with EQ and compression. EQ Made Easy and Compression Made Easy. Those two are essential as well. But I have everything there from beginners, intermediate, and advanced. So go check out all those courses this week because you get them at 50% off. Right? And that's it. So we've been on here almost a couple hours. Again, I want to thank everybody so much for joining. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to you all. Thank you so much for all your support throughout the year. I really do appreciate it. And here's to an exciting 2025. We'll do some more cool stuff. And I hope you guys stick around and continue to support what we do here. Because without you, there is no YouTube channel. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a happy holiday. And I'll see you guys in 2025.